Best program in college basketball takes on the best team for a championship tonight. We'll break it down. Plus, the best of the best in Augusta. It's Masters Week. We'll get Busbee's thoughts on all of that. And not to be outdone, Rashad Jennings is going to join us. We'll talk to him about all things NFL. Yahoo Sports Daily starts right now. She is Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. For the next 2 hours, we're rack, stack, packed, ready to get you caught up on everything you need to know. We've got huge guests, just like always on the show. It's going to be a wild one. But Caroline, we've got championship talk galore. We'll get to tonight's game in a minute. Calm down, everybody, because we've already crowned, one champion, and that comes in the form of UCLA knocking the snot out of South Carolina yesterday, 79-51. UCLA wins their first ever women's NCAA championship. Absolute domination by the Bruins, my friend.
And I am so happy for UCLA, for all of those seniors, 6 seniors who are going to be leaving this year. They got to the Final Four last year. They were the second best team in the country pretty much for the entirety of the season. It felt like, if not now, then when for UCLA? If not now, then when for Corey Close? And so Lauren Betts wins a national championship with her little sister, Sienna Betts. That this group of seniors that has played so much basketball together finally gets their national championship. So for Corey Close, for this program, for all of these players, I am so happy for them. And I want to give UCLA so much credit because they did to both Texas and South Carolina something that I didn't really think was entirely possible, and that's pretty much totally and completely shut them down. I mean, UCLA gave up combined less than 100 total points between Texas and South Carolina. We're talking about two of the best teams in the country. Two of the best teams in the country who average combined about 180 points between both South Carolina and Texas combined per game. We were talking about pure and utter domination from UCLA. I mean, UCLA took several of South Carolina's leading scorers out of the game. You look at Joyce Edwards, she scored 20-plus points in 3 out of South Carolina's games in the tournament. Joyce Edwards and Tanaya Latson, the leading scorer in the NCAA last season, they were basically totally and completely non-impact players in the national championship game. And UCLA has done this. They've blown opponents out. Going back to the Big Ten championship game, Iowa was a Sweet 16 team, and UCLA beat them by 50 points in the conference championship game. So UCLA's championship is no fluke. UCLA's championship didn't come off of a weird call or a last-second shot. No. UCLA's championship came in the form of pure and utter domination every single step along the way. They only lost 1 game all season long, and it was around Thanksgiving. So there's so much credit to this UCLA team. Everything that I'm about to say takes nothing away from UCLA, Fitz. I think South Carolina was experiencing a UConn hangover. I think South Carolina was so physically and emotionally drained from that UConn game that they gave the Huskies everything that they had. That slaying the dragon, that taking down big bad UConn was kind of like South Carolina's national championship, and they just didn't have anything else to give. And then you add on top of the fact that it was incredibly emotional with Dawn and Geno's exchanging of words after the game, and after all of the subsequent social media rhetoric. Like, I just think that South Carolina's tank was too close to empty to hold off a team, an elite team like UCLA.
I totally agree with you. And I think what really hit me about South Carolina is the very thing we talked about over the weekend. You know, as we were getting ready for these games on Friday, one thing we talked about was that South Carolina has had the score of last year's national championship game up in the facility every day. And we talked about the fact that going into that game against UConn, you were going to see a team that, frankly, had all of this emotion pent up because they have had to face that demon every single day for the last year. And they came out in that Final Four and they faced it. They absolutely faced that demon. They conquered that demon. It took every ounce of energy they had. And we'll get to the controversy afterwards in a moment, but certainly it's not lost on me that South Carolina used a lot of their turbo button, to use the video game term we all know, just to get through UConn. They out-efforted UConn. They out-hustled UConn. They out-energied UConn. They out-UConn. And they deserve all the credit. The women on the court deserve all the credit for that win. but then you have to turn right back around and find that same level of emotion. When you spent all that time ready to slay the dragon, it's just one of those things. You have to finish the job. I mean, we often joke about the fact that people forget the Miracle on Ice was not the gold medal game, and we wouldn't remember the Miracle on Ice as much if it didn't result in a gold medal championship after that, right? Like, there are things that have to be done to finish the job afterwards, and South Carolina just didn't have it left in the tank. And, you know, Dawn's certainly handling it. We got smacked today. Got to figure out how. They're the first team, men's, to lose an NCAA title game by 20 or more points in back-to-back season. That is such a daunting part of the conversation of who South Carolina is, because they got their butts flat out whooped by a UCLA team that I think smelled blood. Like, UCLA, the minute that game started, just felt like they were ready to take it to South Carolina, force them to meet you where you are. And South Carolina wasn't ready for it. So I'm with you. We want to be really focused here to give all the credit in the world to UCLA, because, to be clear, South Carolina didn't lose the championship. UCLA went out and won one. So those women deserve a ton of credit for doing that. But at the same time, I think it's also fair to say South Carolina just wasn't ready to rebound from all of the emotion from the game before. And that emotion, to your point, comes back to some of what we saw at the end of the game. I think this Final Four and this championship will not be remembered as much as Geno v. Dawn will be. We all saw the moment at the end of the game where UConn head coach Geno Auriemma goes up to Dawn Staley and loses his mind because, according to him, he didn't like the way things were handled pregame. And I need to even stress that at the press conference afterwards, Caroline, he was asked about it, and he stressed that he wasn't given the proper handshake. He waited several minutes. Reporters pushed back and even let Geno know that there was video and photo evidence of he and Dawn Staley meeting before the game, and he said the reporters were missing the point. This all resulted in an apology afterwards, but we've had enough time to let it simmer a little bit. Now that you've had some time, what's your reaction to what we saw post-game and what should have been a moment for Dawn and South Carolina?
I don't want to even hear about the apology, because Geno had an opportunity in his post-game press conference to address it. I understand in the moment you just lost and you're pissed off and you're embarrassed. So I'm not going to say that Geno should be super, super pumped about losing that game, especially in the manner with which he did. But Geno Auriemma, any coach in any sport, but especially a coach like Geno, a coach that has won 12 national championships, a coach that has been to 25 Final Fours, a coach that has been at the mountaintop of the sport for the last 4 decades, is supposed to hold himself to a certain level of decorum. And when he had the opportunity to apologize right after it happened, if he really had any shred of remorse for what he did or what he said, he would have acknowledged it in the post-game press conference, but instead he said, no, I don't take back what I said. He said, Dawn Staley and I don't have much in common. He doubled down on it in the post-game press conference. I think this is such a horrific look for Geno Auriemma, somebody who I have a lot of respect for. One moment, one decision, and one interaction is enough for me to start changing my mind about how I feel about Geno Auriemma. It doesn't take the trophies away, and it doesn't take away the dominance of UConn, but it does change, at least in my mind, the way that I view Geno, because he acted like a baby. He did not lose with any even shred of class. I thought it was an embarrassing look for Geno Auriemma. And Fitz, do you think the pregame handshake, which they did do, we're looking at it right now, they shook hands before the game, but let's just say, if the roles were reversed, if UConn game and they punched their ticket to the national championship game, do you think Geno makes a big old stink about the pregame handshake? Of course not. That is a crybaby loser mentality.
How would we be treating, I love to play the shoes on the other foot game. How would we be treating Dawn Staley if she had acted that way towards Geno Auriemma after the national championship? How would we be acting towards her? And we had the apology up on the screen earlier. I cannot stress this enough. The apology never says Dawn Staley's name. It never addresses Dawn Staley. In fact, it addresses the staff, and it never says Dawn's name. To me, the longer an apology is, the less I buy it. All Geno had to say in an apology was, I screwed that up. I've talked to coach. I'll make it right. That's it. That's all you had to do. But instead, we get a long statement from Geno that doesn't really say anything. And that's not okay, because your actions said so much afterwards. In that moment, if you're going to issue an apology, which comes at the heels of multiple people sit down, right? Like, let's be very clear here. There is no coach in the country that sits down, pens that apology, and just puts it out. Everybody's involved in the process of issuing an apology, right? So when you think about the number of people that had to look at that, sign off on that, and then decide that was okay, and that's the moment that we're supposed to look at and say, oh yeah, no, I get it. And you're 1,000% right, Caroline. Nothing takes away the fact that Geno Auriemma is one of the most accomplished coaches in any sport in the world. Nothing changes the fact that he has an absolute hallway full of trophies. Nothing changes the fact that he's a winner. But it's allowed for us to change the way we view him right now. That is allowed based solely on his actions. And it's not just his actions at the end of the game. It's not just his actions at the podium. And it's not just his apology. It's all of those things tripled down at once. It's so simple to come out and say, man, I screwed up. I'm sorry. And I'm going to talk to coach one-on-one to make it right. That's okay. Right? We don't need to know every ounce of how he's making it right. But when you issue an apology that never actually apologizes to the person that you truly wronged in this process, which isn't just the players, it's also the coach, shame on you. I cannot say this loud enough. Shame on you, Geno Auriemma, because your platform, it demands that you do better in these moments. Your status in the game demands that you treat these moments better. And you didn't do it. And everything since you've done, since your actions were seen by the world, has just doubled and tripled down on why you didn't and aren't handling it the right way.
And also, we heard Geno at half talk about, call out the refs and say, "Well, one of my kids' jerseys is ripped. Where's the foul for that?" And then the broadcast instantly pans to the video of Sarah Strung ripping her jersey herself. Geno Auriemma causes this big old stink with Don Staley about not shaking his hand pregame, when we have seen photos and videos of Geno shaking Don's hand pregame. So I'm so confused where all of these things are coming from. Like the Geno, somebody who has spent 41 years building his legacy, has now tainted his legacy and reputation in one evening over what? A handshake? Over something so arbitrary and something so minuscule within the grand scheme of the game? I understand that that's tradition. You shake hands. That's sportsmanship. I get it. I hear you. But for Geno to put himself in the line of fire, for Geno to damage his relationship with Don Staley, because Geno and Don go back a far way. They don't just coach against each other. They've coached with each other on Team USA. Like, they know each other very well. So that's a reputation that I would probably venture to say is irreparable. And for what? You have now put a stain on the UConn program. And for what? Like, what are you getting out of this? It's all just so befuddling and confusing to me. And I think the worst part about all of this, bad that Geno Auriemma has brought to the surface, the worst part is we're talking about him. We are not talking about how South Carolina held UConn to less than 30% from the field. A team that shoots better than 50% on average throughout the entirety of the season, one of the best shooting teams in the country. We're not talking about how Agat McKeer, a freshman getting her first taste of the Final Four, went out and got double digits off the bench. We're not talking about how South Carolina commanded the game from the very beginning, and they totally and completely dominated UConn for the entirety of the second half and really a majority of that game. We're not talking about any of that. That should be the conversation. We should be talking about those players and Don Staley's game plan. But no, instead, we're talking about Geno Auriemma's little temper tantrum. And that's the real, travesty of it all.
We're also not talking about a UConn team that was undefeated throughout the entire regular season, only to have it end that way. A season that will now be noted for its failures, not for its success, and a season that will be remembered on the UConn side for a meltdown from a coach that means so much to college sports. All right, from the women's side to the men's side, because tonight we get a championship game for the ages. The best coach in college basketball, the best program, taking on the best team. We'll figure out how it shakes out next.
Who are some of the other like UFC combat sports golfers that we might not know about? Like who's sneaky good?
You know what, man? I don't think there really is anybody else. Daniel Cormier is starting to play. He's absolutely
How's his game?
awful.
Oh,
he's
no.
awful. He talks so much trash. He is so bad. But I tell you what, though, he is an athlete, and he's just like it. Golf's like anything. The more you do it, the better you get.
The Dallas Mavericks, are they still taking Cooper Flag, Corey?
He is legitimately, as a 6'8" wing who does everything at a high level, shows up every day, competes his ass off.
The way his handle has improved since high school to Duke to now suggests that this guy can be a MVP candidate, not just a multi-time All-Star as a role player, a high-end star role player, but a mega star.
Do you feel pressure that this is America's birthday, this is the White House, you have to represent?
Hell yeah. I do feel pressure. I feel pressure that, I got to go out there and represent for the United States, and I got to go out there and I feel like I'm going to be expected to go out there and win this fight. I'll probably be a favorite. There's pressure right there too. I put pressure myself. I need to finish. It's been too long.
Johnson to the end zone, caught. Guess who? C.J. Jefferson.
And in talking to the coaches this week, they said that's your playmaker. That's the guy that Jerome Johnson has the most confidence in. And there you are on 4th and goal, and you throw it right at the goal line, right at the yellow line at the wall. Terrific throw. Nice catch.
Great execution there for New Mexico. They had to have a play.
The men's title game is set. Will Michigan or UConn be cutting down the nets on Monday night? We ask, and it's time to get straight to it because we have a UConn team that has absolutely been doubted every step of the way, Caroline, versus a Michigan team that has looked – we thought Arizona-Michigan was supposed to be the real national championship. Michigan just knocked the snot out of them. So who wins it tonight? What are we looking for?
Look, watching Michigan do what they did to Arizona, a team that so many times throughout the course of the tournament, Arizona, I have said, I don't know who's beating this team. This team looks unbeatable. This size is unbeatable. Their defense is, so incredibly difficult to get anything going on. And then Michigan worked Arizona basically from the very first second of that game. So I should say Michigan should win this game and win this game handedly. I should feel like Michigan is going to cruise their way to a national championship. But Fitz, there's something about this UConn team, something almost intangible, something that you can't really put a metric on that is impossible to count them out. I think on paper, when you look at the size matchup, when you look at Michigan's path to get here, my brain would tell me, and all of the numbers and the data would tell me that Michigan should win this basketball game. But UConn just has it. The special mojo, the secret sauce, this level of swagger, this unwavering belief in themselves, this chip on their shoulder, this us against the world mentality, whatever cliche you want to use, UConn has all of it. So many times I have picked teams to beat UConn along the way. And look, I still think that Michigan absolutely has a very good shot to win this game. Michigan's size is an overwhelming advantage, just like I thought Illinois' size was going to be an advantage against UConn. Clearly not. But there's something about UConn where I cannot get up here and say with the utmost certainty, even if all of the numbers and all of the data tell me that Michigan should win this game, I can't say that with a ton of certainty because UConn just has it. Like, I will never count this UConn team out. Not now.
Well, look, I had UConn go into the Final Four in my bracket. So I haven't been surprised by anything UConn accomplished until the Final Four game. And I can't stress this enough because the Illini were supposed to be so explosive and so suffocating on defense that they were going to put pressure on UConn on both ends of the court. And there's no way UConn could stand up to it. I bought into some of that logic, and I would have been wrong. So, look, at the end of the day, it is fool's gold to bet against Hurley. In fact, for anyone that hasn't seen this, UConn in the NCAA tournament since 2009 is 19-0 in Sweet 16 games or later. So once they hit the Sweet 16 since 2009, they literally haven't lost. And if you look at them against the spread in the NCAA tournament since 2023, they're now 18-1. We're talking about a team that's in their third championship game in 4 years. We're talking about a level of dominance we haven't seen in an era. In fact, when you look at that Sweet 16 stat, that's the first since UCLA in 1972 through 75. So you look at that and say, well, I'm not betting against that. But also, I have a Michigan team on the other side of this, that Michigan has been up by 15 or more at the half in the Elite Eight and the Final Four. That hasn't happened since 1967-68. Also UCLA. So when you go all the way back and you start looking at this, we're not just talking about, wow, these are two really good teams. We're talking about historic level of greatness taking on historic level of greatness. And, Dan Hurley, who we see on the screen right there, is clearly a cheat code, right? Like, he is a brilliant coach. I keep hearing the word genius bantered around. I don't love the use of genius sometimes in sports, but I don't know that it doesn't apply here, because UConn was able to handle everything that Illinois put on them. UConn's defense is just playing so incredibly well that it creates opportunities for them offensively. I keep looking at that saying, how do you bet against that? But then I look at the size of Michigan, and I look at what Michigan just did to Arizona and say, I'm not betting against that. I think UConn is as close to a team of destiny as we could possibly see, and I still feel like Michigan can win this game by 20 points, because Michigan is that big, and they're that rangy, and they have that much length, and they have that much ability to get out to the perimeter. I keep looking at Michigan saying, I can't bet against what I see on the court for them, even if it makes no sense to bet against Hurley. I feel like I'm hedging my bet here. I'm trying not to. I think Michigan wins big, but I also think that Hurley's proven me wrong already in this tournament.
I also wonder how much UConn's experience has fueled them to this point. That's another sort of metric that you can't really account for, whether it's in, predictions or, in the betting market, that Dan Hurley, as has Dusty May, let's be fair, but Dan Hurley has been here before, and Dan Hurley has won 2 national championships before. Alex Karaban has been here before. So many members of this UConn team have been here before. There's a certain element of understanding the gravity of a national championship game, of not tucking your tail between your legs whenever the lights get the brightest. And look, Michigan did not seem overly impacted by the moment against Arizona on Saturday night. So I will point that out here, that Michigan doesn't seem too overwhelmed by, the task at hand. And I think that's such a credit to Dusty May and his coaching and the culture that he has built in Ann Arbor. But this UConn team is so familiar with the bright lights of a national championship. I do wonder, while we can break down the box scores as much as we can look at as much film, watch as many games as we possibly can, but, really when it comes down to it is UConn's experience, not just the number of years, the number of games that they've played, but their level of experience in the national championship game. How much does that make a difference? Or is Michigan such a wagon and so clearly the best team in the country that it doesn't matter that they haven't been in this moment before?
I feel like belief is a drug, and UConn has so much of it. If
it is,
this UConn team wins a national championship, this is by far the best job that Hurley has done. And I know that he's already had some great teams, but the talent on this team does not equal the talent of some of the other champions that they've had, number one. Number two, if you win 3 and 4, we really, that's when you start having a Mount Rushmore conversation. This is the moment where if UConn wins, we have to recalibrate everything we have to say about Hurley. We have to recalibrate everything, not that it hasn't already been glowing. We have to recalibrate everything we say about UConn basketball. This becomes one of those definitive moments for a generation where you turn around and the best coach of this generation is no longer just what we have to say about Hurley. If this UConn team wins a championship, he becomes one of the greatest coaches of all time. To do it, especially in the modern construct of what NCAA basketball is. I sat there and watched ESPN argue on game day about whether or not college basketball is actually professional basketball, and Coach Cal talking about how impossible it is to compete and how transactional it is. And all I keep thinking is, hasn't slowed down Hurley. hasn't slowed down UConn. Like, you want to talk about a school that's been successful in the 90s and the 2000s and the 2010s and now in the modern era of college basketball, it's UConn. The opportunity here for UConn is to remind the world that they are truly the premier program in the entire country, and it's untouchable, but not just for right now. I mean, this becomes an all-time run, 3 and 4 years. 3 and 4 years for Hurley. We have to take the entire conversation, which is already at times glowing for Hurley and for UConn basketball, and elevate it to a different level. If this version of UConn beats this version, particularly this Michigan team for a national championship game, I don't know that we can be glowing enough.
First of all, like, save it, Coach Cal. Like, please, you got Tyson Chicken Nuggets single-handedly funding your basketball team. Like, spare me that it's too hard to compete in today's college basketball. Like, wah. But yeah, to your point, I think that this would be the most impressive national championship for Dan Hurley, and I think that it's a few different reasons why. One, it's the team that they would have to beat to do it in Michigan, an absolute wagon, one of the biggest teams in the country, a team that just took down who I thought was the best team in the country and doing it seemingly without breaking a sweat. Two, it would be the path that they took to get there. We talked so much about the east side of the bracket, a UConn side of the bracket. It was Duke. It was St. John's. It was Kansas. It was Michigan State. It was every big brand and well-known future Hall of Fame head coach on that side of the bracket, and UConn was the one that made themselves out of it. And also, you add on top of the fact that we just saw probably the best ending of any college basketball game ever in the UConn Duke game. A logo buzzer beater 3 to punch your ticket to the Final Four from a freshman who hadn't made a 3 all game. Like, cinema. That adds on to it. The third thing, and probably the most important aspect of it, it would be his 3rd in 4 years. It's the volume, it's the quickness with which he did it, it's his ability to stay at the top of the college basketball world, even when roster construction year over year has never been harder than it is right now. It's recruiting, it's transfer potential, all things that coaches like Cal are complaining about on a daily basis. So for all of those reasons, I think the third one would have to be the most impressive one.
That being said, I haven't seen anything in this entire NCAA tournament more impressive than what Michigan did to Arizona. Y'all don't get it twisted. Like, I mean, Michigan, Arizona was supposed to be this epic, oh my God, final. Like, it was supposed to be the real national championship game. And if it was, the actual national championship game could be a bloodbath, because if the best game we could possibly get is what Michigan just did to that Arizona team, look out. All right, you also got to look out for the Masters. It is Masters week coming up next. Jay Busbee going to join us. We'll get Busbee's thoughts on not just, Pimento, but also, more importantly, golf, what to expect.
Two in motion, quarterback drops back, looks, throws the ball wide open over the middle. Oh, what a hit and what an interception. Huge defensive play. Absolutely beast mode. Jaden Rowe able to get the pick, and we have our first turnover of the game.
He used his head. Well, a tip drill to his teammate off his head.
I was super proud of Gable's fight. I think that Gable really showed tonight that he is going to be great. There's several questions that we got answered. What is he going to do when he gets hit? That was the big one. Everybody's asking it. All the coaches are looking at it. Gable took a spinning heel kick to the jaw and went like this. Nothing. No, he didn't get out of the process. As a matter of fact, he went right back in that guy's face. So that answers a huge question. Also takes away another avenue to victory that all his future opponents will be looking at.
We're going to give you a name. You tell us whether it's a real college athlete or if our producers just made it up out of thin air. Okay, so collegian or concoction. The first one we'll give you is Fat Brooks. Now, for clarity, Fat is P-H-A-T.
That is a concoction.
That's a collegian. He's a guard for Central Michigan.
Fat Brooks.
Fat Brooks, yes.
But you know what, Ariel, as well? I actually think this is a wonderful, wonderful thing for the UFC. Because if you've got the UFC heavyweight champion whose profile has already risen incredibly over the last week, and by the way, we will continue to drive his profile with our promotional machine. And I believe that when he fights again, he will be in a much better position commercially. He will be a much bigger star.
Hello, friends. Who's next? It's Masters Week. I can't even do it. Like, I want to do it, but it just doesn't work for me. It just doesn't. You know, some guys can do
It
hello,
sounded
friends,
scary.
and make it sound perfect. Well, thank you. That's I do
little
love
scary.
horror movies. Buzz, look,
A little
we'll
jigsaw
welcome in
of
Jay
you.
Busbee. You're right. You're right. But I'm a horror movie aficionado. Jay, can you give us a hello, friends, that people might actually buy because they're creeped out by mine?
Hello, friends. How was that? Not
See?
quite as creepy as yours?
What can't he do?
Better.
Yeah.
What can't he do?
It was definitely better.
What can't he do?
Yeah.
All right. Caroline, you want to get in on this, and then we'll get to the Masters talk. You wanna give us a hello,
Yeah,
friends?
triple. Go ahead.
Hello, friends.
See, that was cheerful. That makes me happy. I like that one.
It was too happy. It was too happy. All right,
Too
we're
happy. It's
because
the Masters.
Week. I was too happy. No. That Jim Nantz never sounds happy. He just sounds like me on a Friday night. All right, so we're gonna get to the guys in the field in just a second. But let's start with the two big names not in the field, Busby. Okay, and that is no Tiger, no Phil for the first time since 1994. What does that mean to you?
It's a little bit sad in one way. You know, it's obviously very clearly the end of an era, but by the same token, you know, those guys were not really relevant on the competitive stage. It was cool to see them. You know, I always, when they would play, I would always go and catch a couple of holes of them just to, you know, just for nostalgia's sake. If if Michael Jordan was still like running layups, you would want to go and watch it, even though it would be pretty cringeworthy to see him in 2026. It's the same way with Tiger and Phil. You want to see him take a couple of swings, but the fact that they're not here, it is very clearly a demarcation in a next era of the Masters.
So, Busby, I know that we all love a good Masters success story. We saw that with Rory when he finally broke through and won his, when Hideki Matsuyama won it, and we saw that iconic photo of his caddy bowing to Augusta. It gives me chills just talking about it. So what's one golfer that you think could captivate the nation by winning the Masters this year?
You know, it's a great question because there's a number of different storylines that have sort of wrapped up now that Rory has won that last Master. But I think the one story that could really make a big comeback is someone who had success at Augusta, had failure at Augusta, and then sort of vanished from the scene. I'm talking about Jordan Spieth. Back in the 2010s, everybody loved this guy. He won in 2015. He had one arm in the green jacket in 2016 and then gave it away with a terrible hole at the 12th. And since then, he's won one major, but he's struggled for the last almost 8 or 9 years. If he were able to somehow put together a weekend charge, it would be the kind of story that would absolutely captivate golf in a way that Rory was able to and Tiger was able to. But I think that he would be the best story. I'm not sure how likely it is, but if we're talking best story, it would be Jordan Spieth.
Well, yeah, let's go to likely then, because if there was ever a year for that to happen, I mean, this year, none of the betting favorites seem to be in form. What do we make of the fact that some of the people that, you know, we think should be the favorite aren't necessarily playing the best right now?
Yeah, it's Scotty Scheffler is right at the top of that list. I mean, and the fact that Scotty Scheffler, what's bad for him is a great year for almost everybody else. He struggled on Thursdays this year. He hasn't had a whole lot of success compared to previous years. That said, he's Scotty Scheffler. The guy just welcomed his second child, a son, 10 days ago, and he's probably going to go out and win the tournament. He's just that good, but he hasn't shown the form leading in. Rory McIlroy won the Masters last year, got that absolute that monkey that had been on his back for years and years. He got that off. He's ready to roll again forward, but he hasn't had the same kind of success. He's had some back troubles earlier this year that could cause him trouble in the Masters this season. So what we're looking at is somebody that might be able to come through in a way that they haven't before. And I think that there are guys like Bryson DeChambeau who has taken it close to the Masters. He was in the final pairing last year. And then John Rahm, who has won at the Masters already, but he's been on Live Golf. We haven't seen a whole lot of him on the big stages. I think it'd be fun to see if he's able to do it again this year.
You mentioned Scotty Scheffler, of course, the betting favorite to win the Masters this year. If Scotty Scheffler wins his third in 5 years, what does that mean for him and his legacy and how we view him in the game of golf?
Yeah, nobody wants to start comparing him to Tiger just because Tiger was so astounding. But the numbers bear out that he is on a Tiger-esque trajectory. He has won so much. He's already in position to win the career Grand Slam. It took Rory, it took him 11 years to do that. Scheffler might be able to knock it out in less than a year based on what he's won over the last year if he wins at the U.S. Open in a couple of months. Scheffler is already in otherworldly territory. He's on that trajectory. He hasn't totaled up the numbers yet, but he's on that path. And if he goes and wins the green jacket again this year, as you said, third time in 5 years, I mean, that's all-time territory right there already.
So talk about some of the other guys, because you mentioned the live golf portion of this, and sometimes I think we forget that live golf has been its own little controversy. Does that actually play in your mind in any way when we get into the Masters? Like, is there animosity between the guys or any lingering effect from live?
You know, at this point, I don't think there is. At this point, I think that they've all kind of settled into, okay, this is your camp, this is my camp, this is where we're staying. The kind of the bitterness, the lawsuits, those have gone away. There's still a few PGA Tour players who are kind of sore that the live players made a ton of money and are being slowly welcomed back in. But for the most part, everybody seems to be understanding that we're just going to work on these two separate tracks. Live and the PGA Tour are not coming together anytime soon, if at all. What's interesting is you've got a live player in Brooks Koepka and then another one also in Patrick Reed who have played well. Patrick Reed obviously won the Masters back in 2018, and these guys could come back and have success after leaving live, and that would be kind of a little feather in the PGA Tour's cap saying, okay, yeah, you had these players, then we took them back from you. So it's almost more of a, it's not a boxing match anymore between these two. It's more of a chess match where, you know, kind of a public relations sort of thing. And if Koepka or Reed were able to make a run after having left live, again, that would be a little bit more of a knock on live as an organization.
So we mentioned some of those live golfers, Jon Rahm, Bryson DeChambeau. Of any of those live guys, who would you give the best odds to make a run at the Masters?
I mean, you know, the DeChambeau and Jon Rahm are the two that are really well and above everyone else. You know, there's a couple of other guys playing. Terrell Hatton, I love this guy simply for the fact that he cusses his mouth out. I would love to see what he does at the Masters, how the Green Jackets would handle a guy just with an X-rated stream of profanity. But outside of that, I think that DeChambeau, he is my pick because he was so close last year. I think he learned a lot from last year. He was playing with Rory in that final group. He got a little bit overwhelmed by the pressure, I think. He didn't make the shots that he's capable of making. And in the Masters, you tend to have to lose one before you win one. You have to lose one badly before you win one. And I think that DeChambeau might have gone through that last year. He might have had his time in the fire. And if he's in one of the late pairings on Sunday, I'm looking for him to make a run.
What about Brooks Koepka? Any chance he can make a run this week?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're still kind of figuring out exactly how he's playing and whether or not he's not necessarily back from injury, but back from layoff, back from getting back reintegrated into the PGA Tour. He hasn't won at Augusta, but it's not for trying. He was very, very, very close to being the most unpopular man in the history of golf back in 2019 when he almost came from behind and took out Tiger there in that great Tiger Woods win in 2019. If Koepka had beaten him, no one would ever forgive him. But Tiger's not in the field this year. Koepka doesn't have to worry about hurting anyone's feelings. So he has the ability to win here. He hasn't quite gotten it done. I would not be surprised to see him in the mix on Sunday.
What about some former major winners like Colin Morikawa, Xander Schauffele? Do you believe that any of them could be a threat this week, or any other former major winner that I didn't name?
Yeah, there's a few. And the one among those, well, Colin Morikawa, there's questions about his back. He had to withdraw from the Players' Championship. Schauffele has two majors back in 2024. He's kind of getting back into that form. The one guy that I would like to look at, and in addition to them, is Justin Rose. This is a guy who has had two playoff losses already, to Rory last year, to Sergio back in 2017. He's been this close. He's got one major back in 2013. He won the U.S. Open, but he's been so close ever since then, and hasn't quite gotten it done. I do think that Schauffele and Morikawa are reasonable bets, but yeah, one of these guys who only has majors outside of Augusta, it's going to be interesting to see if they're able to bring it home.
So this is the time of year where I get to be a weatherman. I don't love being a weatherman, Busby. I feel like an old person when I look at the Weather Channel constantly, but I have looked at the weather constantly for Augusta, and the weather's actually really nice this week. They're saying it's going to be warm during the week, but yeah, I know. So talk to me. How is it going to impact the golfers, what we're actually going to see from the sun in the sky?
Yeah, bite your tongue, sir. I live in Atlanta. I'm not far from Augusta, as you can tell. I'm literally going to be leaving for the course right after I finish up with you folks. But it hasn't rained a whole lot here, and that's interesting because the drier that Augusta's greens get, the faster they get. Now, obviously, the course can make the masters of the course, the masters of the masters can make it however they want to, but it has been dry here in Georgia over the last few weeks, and so even if it's nice weather, those greens can be running very, very fast. Some people have compared it to putting on concrete or putting on a greased gym floor, whatever you want to say. It's very, very fast. And so that's going to be the tricky part, is figuring out the speed of these greens, because if you miss a putt, I mean, it can literally roll all the way to South Carolina. So that's the kind of thing that these guys are going to have to worry about.
How long does it take for a golfer in the Masters typically to adjust to the greens?
I mean, even Tiger Woods struggled in his first round here, and it takes you a while. You get a chance to play 5 times before before the tournament if you're invited. It's down from an unlimited amount of times because one player whose name rhymes with Weiss and Weishambo apparently took too much advantage of that and played way too much. But if you get 5 chances to play, and if you take those chances wisely and you learn how these greens work, you can figure it out fairly quickly. But the thing is, even the slightest miss, if you miss, if you're 98% there, that 2% will absolutely annihilate your card if you're not paying close attention. And so, yeah, it takes players 2 or 3 years to be able to figure out. You see, even the great players, with the exception of Tiger, you'll see cuts and you'll see low finishes and that kind of thing on their cards before they start to figure out how to win here.
Busby, you've been to plenty of Masters. You've had the lovely, opportunity and privilege of getting to go to Augusta. You've experienced this firsthand. I'm going to tell you to look into your crystal ball for the 2026 Masters. What's going to be the biggest story that comes out of this year's tournament?
That's a good one. I think, well, the one story, which has nothing to do with the course, is the gnomes, the famous gnomes on the course. Apparently, these collector's items that everyone loves. Apparently, the rumor is that this is their last year. So the off-the-course story will be the gnomes, and of course, all the food, the pimento cheese, and the cheap food as well. But in terms of the on-course story, I think it's going to be interesting to watch Rory McIlroy's defense. I think he's going to fall a little short, but I think he's going to be an absolute fan favorite. He's going to be embraced. I do think DeChambeau is going to win, and I think it's going to be a fun Sunday, one of these ones where you have a whole lot of people in the mix right until the very end. We haven't had a whole lot of, as wonderful as the Masters finishes have been, with the exception of last year, we haven't had a whole lot of close Masters finishes, the players winning by 3 and 4 strokes. So I would love to see more of what we had last year, coming down to a playoff, coming down to the final hole, the tournament's still in doubt.
So with that in mind, of all the golfers that we're going to see over the course of the next several days, who's the one person you think is best positioned to handle the pressure of the Masters?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to go away from Scottie Scheffler just because he doesn't seem to feel pressure. He just seems to shrug it off. But that's kind of a dull answer because everybody loves Scottie Scheffler. What I would like to see is someone who hasn't handled the pressure well, handle it well. And I'm going to go off the board here and say Shane Lowry. This is Rory McIlroy's friend. It would be very cool if McIlroy's friend Shane Lowry was able to win. Not only that, he's probably the best hang in golf. He's the guy that you want to meet at the bar. He's got stories for everything. I would love to see Shane Lowry come from out of nowhere and win a green jacket. And he's had trouble with pressure in the past. If he's able to conquer that this time around, what a story that would be.
What's the first thing you're doing when you get to Augusta?
A peach ice cream sandwich. I mean, I got to do it. You got to. I try to restrict myself because I will have them breakfast, lunch, and dinner if I'm not careful. So I just kind of get it out of the way. It's like you feed that addiction to begin with. As soon as I get there, I'll get the peach ice cream sandwich.
Have you ever craved anything you haven't eaten? Because I crave the peach ice cream sandwiches, and I've never had them, and I want one so bad.
I would absolutely mail it to you, but it would be just a peach sloppy mess by the time it got to you. So yeah, we got to get you out of the course at some point. But it is delightful. Yeah, it's something that you just save for once a year. There's nothing that compares to it.
I think Busby just made sure that Yacht Staley next year comes at you directly from Augusta. I appreciate you using your power to make sure that happens, my friend. Who's going to win? When it's all said and done, who wins this thing?
Yeah, I'm going with DeChambeau. I think that DeChambeau is going to get it this year. I think it's going to be a fight, but I think that DeChambeau has what it takes to win both from a talent level and also from a mental level, from a spine level. He's able to hold through it all the way through. So yeah, it's going to be fun.
I went to a golf event at Pinehurst once, and I wore a little like Newsies hat and the knee-high puffy Knickerbocker pants that was lime green. So I'm just asking, like, are you sure you want us to do, like, 'cause now that you're getting us into the Masters, clearly, my voice is still allowable for the Masters, correct? Like, we're good with me lime green knee-high puffy pants.
As long as you don't wear a green jacket and try to pass yourself off as one of the Lords of Augusta, I think you're just fine.
Okay. This has been more likely they will dress me as one of the gnomes. Busbee, we appreciate you. Follow him on social media. Made myself laugh. Jay Busbee. Jay, always appreciate you, brother. Enjoy Augusta. Have pimento for us.
Thank you, my friends. We'll see you soon.
Always great for Busbee to get us in at the Masters. Who knew? By the way, weekend full of wow moments. We'll give you some wow factor coming up next.
What do you think was kind of misunderstood about George Pickens prior to him arriving in Dallas?
I don't know. It was so many things that I feel like that was misunderstood. They feel like his attitude was off. And I mean, he come in the league at 19 years old. What do you expect out of a guy? You want him to be your receiver one?
Right.
I feel like that's kind of crazy. But keeping him within the guidelines, letting him be himself at the same time, I feel like was probably the best thing for him. And I knew that it was gonna have him comfortable here in Dallas.
What was your impression of him? Do you feel like you have a friendship with Giannis now?
I feel like he was just my friend. Like, I didn't even see him as just a basketball player, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I was just like that's just my guy. Cause we were just chilling. Like, he took me to his home. He took me to his first we did his first dunk in his neighborhood. So like, he was just showing me around. And I think we still check up on each other.
Very
I just need to go to one of his games, which I promised him.
Sending everybody in motion. He waits, pulls it, throws it, big completion. Can they get on the board? And he is in. That's a touchdown for CJ Wyndham. 2 touchdowns last week. Now he gets his first touchdown of this game.
This is a spectacular play by Harper. I mean, because this is a zone read, and it's really an RPO. Harper sees it and then is able to hit Wyndham coming across the field in a matter of milliseconds there.
Who is your first player to team fit that you absolutely love?
Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end of Oregon, to the Chiefs. And this was basically a post-combine reaction, basically Vernon Davis style numbers athletically. And so I think it was validating to see kind of him put those numbers up athletically, his speed, explosion, change of direction. He feels like a player that is not going to drop very far in this draft, especially in a draft where there aren't a ton of blue chip players.
This shot by Jokic in overtime was incredible. If you didn't see it, look at this. Gets the ball over, up, and away. Sinking it like it's easy over a giant of a man in Wemby. 40 points, 8 boards, 13 assists, and 0 turnovers. Absolutely mammoth performance from Jokic and the Nuggets. I still can't figure out how he floated him over there. So many things over the course of the weekend made us say, wow. So that showdown and that certain shot certainly amongst them. Caroline, we're going to do a little bit of wow test here. So is a regular wow out of you, or is it an Owen Wilson wow? Which wow do you give to the shot we just saw?
So Owen Wilson wow would be wow.
Wow.
Like that. Wow.
That was how did you do that? That was really well done.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I have a future in Owen Wilson impersonations, I guess. Wow.
Wow.
This is just a regular wow for me, which doesn't take anything away. It's still a wow. It's still a heck of a shot, especially considering you're doing it over 7 foot, 15-inch Victor Wembanyama with the hands the size of a dinner plate. Like, that's why it gets a wow. But it's not like the greatest shot I have ever seen in my whole entire life. Yes, it's a tough shot. Yes, you're going up against the best defensive player in the NBA, but it's a wow. It's not a wow, but it's a wow.
Wow. Okay, I am impressed that I can barely tell the difference between your wow and the Owen Wilson wow that Josh is playing for us. I can barely tell the difference. Also, I'm a little bit disappointed in you on a Monday morning that didn't get an Owen Wilson wow, because it deserves the wow. I can't do it. Go ahead, Owen, give it to me. It deserves that version of it. Look, he's got his back to him. We see it here, and then he turns around. He's falling back, fade away, floating it over. Like that takes such an understanding of how to get the ball over. Like even Wemby, you can see his body reaction as it goes in. Think, how did that happen? Plus, Denver takes it to San Antonio. I don't know. That one to me was give me Owen one more. Owen, give me one more time, Owen. There we go. Oh, Wilson with the wow. All right. So good. Okay. So since that one only got a regular wow from you, let's see maybe a little bit of baseball here. Joe Adell, I don't know if you guys saw this, may have had the single greatest defensive performance of all time in a wild, wild game. And why was it one of the greatest of all time? Because in one game, he managed 3 home run robberies, including one where he went colliding, falling over the fence, much like the indoor football league games that we cover all the time, and managed to hold on to the ball in the stands with the crowd around him. I mean, there have been over 70,000 Major League Baseball games played, and we've never seen that. Look at the picture. Standing in the crowd. Why? Because the ball took him over there. And by the way, he caught it. Does that get three robberies, 1 game? Does that get a wow from you, or are you going on?
This is wow. Wow. This is an Owen. Yep, that's exactly what it is. This is an Owen Wilson wow. The entire night as a whole, the fact that you steal 3 home runs, like totally and completely steal them. They are going over the wall and he snatches it. Doing that once is insanity. Doing that twice is worthy of a Gatorade bath, but doing it 3 times, that's the one. Like, that is the catch. He went up and over and into the stands, and that photo when he's just standing there with the ball in his glove. Oh, it is so good. That absolutely deserves an Owen Wilson wow. And you said it. I think that will and should go down as one of the best defensive performances that we've ever seen in Major League Baseball.
For me, it's the one where he's like laying, horizontal on top of the boards with a hand in the air like it's a jazz hand, because the other one is out there catching a baseball. This doesn't get 1 wow. This doesn't get 2 wows. This gets 3 Owens, because 3 great defensive stops deserves it. Wow. There was 1. Wow. There's 2.
Wow. There it is.
Yeah, there we go. Owen Wilson coming in on the show. 3 wows. I mean, each of them by themselves would have been a wow, but by the time you get to the third one, you could even see it from everybody on the field as there's sort of suspended disbelief over and over and over again for the ability to get that done. I don't know how you do that, but testament that he got it done. All right, we'll keep it on the diamond. We'll go to the next one and see if we're going Owen on this one. I love going Owen. That's the new phrase for here. All right, Connor Griffin made his debut over the weekend. Owen Wilson type of performance, or just a regular wow as Pirates fans were ready to flock to the stadium to see his debut?
Look, Connor Griffin as a prospect is an Owen Wilson wow. But his debut, his first couple of games, that just gets a regular wow. Like, look, his very first major league at bat, he hits an RBI double. Anytime you can bring a guy home or score a run, especially on your very first at bat in the big leagues, like, of course, that's going to be deserving of a wow. That's going to be deserving of our attention. But overall, in 2 games, in Connor Griffin's 2 first games as a Major League Baseball player, he went 1 for 6. So, like, that just gets a regular wow, if that.
Yeah, and so that's the funny part of it. Look, hope is worth a lot. And so, obviously getting butts in the seats and getting your entire fan base sort of engaged, the world falling in love with Connor Griffin over the weekend. Some of what Paul Skeen said about his maturity I thought was really staggering. So, look, I think it's a cool moment. The baseball itself gets a wow, but the Owen Wilson of it is the contract. For anyone that didn't see, they are finalizing a 9-year, $140 million contract extension with him that they were trying to get done before he had his first at-bat. So 9 years, $140 million deal from the Pirates shatters the record for largest contract before making a Major League Baseball debut. According to this, it has been signed. So you're talking about 9 years, $140 million. That gets an Owen Wilson. I'm going Owen on the money because, my God, that could be – I mean, you talk about just absolute iconic cash coming in. I love it when guys get paid. Dinner's on Connor for a very long time. But you are right. This is the thing that we're going to be, and Caroline's been kind of from the beginning in a smart way. We love looking at the home run numbers, right? We love looking at, and for Connor, did the same thing in spring training. But the batting average has got to get better. Certainly, it's very, very early. He's going to be a superstar. We're all going to love every single ounce of it, but I would give the baseball itself a wow, and the contract, we go full Owen. All right, how about another young phenom? How about this? Over the weekend, someone born 8 months after Connor Griffin, so 8 months younger than Connor Griffin, would be, I don't know, Cooper Flagg, drops a 50-burger, the first 19-year-old ever to drop 50. Oh, and by the way, had 45 also against the Lakers. So we're talking about a massive weekend for Cooper Flagg. Does that get are you giving that a wow, or are you going Owen?
Well, first of all, it's breaking my brain that Cooper Flagg's almost a full year younger than Connor Griffin, because in my brain, Connor Griffin is an infant baby child who was just born yesterday, and Cooper Flagg has, been a household name for years. So it's crazy to me that he's that much younger than him. But this is an Owen Wilson wow.
Wow.
Wow is correct, Owen. I mean, I think that's an impressive stat line, no matter how old you are. It's impressive when you're 41, when you're LeBron James and 41 years old. It's impressive when you're Cooper Flagg and you're 19 years old. It's impressive for any player in the league to surpass the 50-point threshold. That doesn't happen very often. Games like that don't come around very frequently, but Cooper Flagg was able to do it at just 19 years old in his rookie season. And also, let's be honest, in games that are meaningless and don't mean much for the Dallas Mavericks, it would be so easy for, Cooper Flagg or that entire team to just kind of wave the white flag and say the season is over for us, so we'll just go out there, do our jobs, wash our hands of it, and be done. But seeing a performance like that, even when it doesn't matter, I think almost adds to the intrigue of it, that Cooper Flagg is such a competitor that he doesn't care that the game is, in our eyes, meaningless, because to him, it's an opportunity to go out there and to compete. So I think that, and he followed it up with a 45-point performance. So my goodness, Cooper Flagg, Owen Wilson, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm with you. This is an Owen Wilson wow. And
wow.
I think what happens as we go Owen with it is, so we talk a lot about normalizing greatness, which is something we do in sports all the time. And it's something I think we are going to be victim of doing with Cooper a lot, just because the expectations were so high coming in. I mean, the concept that it was fine to let Luka Doncic go away because you were going to have Cooper Flagg, like that speaks to how huge the shoes are. We're just asking a 19-year-old kid to step in and fill, and he's done it throughout the course of the year. Like, whatever the expectations were for the Mavericks, they suck. That's fine. They have nothing to play for. They're terrible. Whatever the expectations were for Cooper Flagg have been met. At every single step of the way, he has played like the absolute superstar that people think he can be. He looks like he can be one of the faces of the league moving forward. He's certainly, as much as we've spent a lot of time, rightfully so, praising Con Knipple on this show, that doesn't take away from how good Cooper Flagg has been. I think part of this is that we just expected Cooper Flagg to walk into the league and be dominant. So sometimes when he is, we don't give it the amount of credit that it deserves. This is just a reminder of how good he is and how right the Mavs have it. Now, they're going to have to build an entire team around him because they are wretched, awful, terrible. I can't stress this enough. The Mavs suck. They have nothing to play for. But to see Cooper go out and do 50 one night and 45 the next, I think that just has to reopen our eyes to how great he can be. It gets the Owen. I go full Owen with it because even this late in the season, your point's a really strong one, Caroline. When there's nothing left to play for, it'd be really easy for Cooper Flagg to be put on ice. And as much as we love to have these load management conversations, we're not talking about the fact that guys like Cooper are still out here busting his butt, trying to be the best he can be with nothing to play for, busting his butt, trying to get more NBA experience when everything's now about next year. Like, Cooper coming out and playing like the Energizer Bunny he can be and just dominating games like he did all weekend, I think is a statement that the league should be looking at and we should be giving everyone.
What does that mean for the Rookie of the Year conversation in your eyes?
It's tough for me because I think Con has been historic, absolutely historic. I think Con Knipple is the Rookie of the Year, but I also think that I'm buying in a little bit on, I expected, like, what's Cooper, like I just said, I think sometimes the expectations, like, we didn't expect Con to command the league. Like, it's a cop-out. I wish they could both get it. I wish we could have a tie for Rookie of the Year because I think both have been impactful, but I would have to lean Con just because what we expected has been far exceeded by Charlotte. What about you?
It's Con Knipple to me, and I don't even think it's worthy of sharing. which takes nothing away from Cooper Flagg and what he's meant to this Dallas team, because he is the nucleus of that Dallas team. But we kind of knew that he was going to be. Dallas sold the farm and decided they were going to build around Cooper Flagg. But Con Knipple has been so incredibly impactful on a team that is a legitimate playoff contender. Con Knipple, like you mentioned, has rewritten the history books, both in the Charlotte Hornets franchise and in the NBA. I mean, Con Knipple is must-see TV, and let's not get it twisted, so is Cooper Flagg. Like 100%, especially when those two play each other. Oh, it's fireworks. But I think that Con Knipple is playing more meaningful basketball at such a high level. And I think that team success has something to do with that. And you could look at Cooper Flagg and say, okay, well, he's leading the team in scoring, he's leading the team in assists. Okay, but I think that says more about Dallas than it does about Cooper Flagg. I think Con Knipple being a foundational piece of a potential playoff team bears more weight, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's hard for me because I often say to you, and we've said on this show, I hate equating team success with individual performance in a team sport because there's so many variables to being good or bad. But when you look at the weight of what Con Knipple's performances had meant for a Charlotte team that had to play with the pressure of trying to make the playoffs and exceeding those expectations, that's where I do think it has to become part of the conversation. So I'm with you. I have no problem with Con Knipple winning this award. I just don't want to minimize the success of Cooper Flagg in the process. And that's one of the weird legacy things about the way we cover the NBA. There will be plenty of people that have negative things to say about Cooper if he doesn't win the Rookie of the Year. It doesn't mean he didn't meet expectations. It just means Con exceeded them. All right, we will get back to the NBA, but coming up next, plenty of NFL talk. The draft right around the corner. We're going to figure out what to make of some of the best players in the league with a former player from the league, Rashad Jennings, joining us next.
Who are some of the other like UFC combat sports golfers that we might not know about? Like who's sneaky good?
You know what, man? I don't think there really is anybody else. Daniel Cormier is starting to play. He's absolutely
How's his game?
awful.
He's
no.
awful.
He talks so much trash. He is so bad. But I tell you what, though, he is an athlete, and he's just like in golf's like anything. The more you do it, the better you get.
The Dallas Mavericks, are they still taking Cooper Flagg, Corey?
He is legitimately, as a 6'8" wing who does everything at a high level, shows up every day, competes his ass off.
The way his handle has improved since high school to Duke to now suggests that this guy can be a MVP candidate, not just a multi-time All-Star as a role player, a high-end star role player, but a mega star.
Do you feel pressure that this is America's birthday, this is the White House, you have to represent?
Hell yeah. I do feel pressure. I feel pressure that, I got to go out there and represent for the United States, and I got to go out there and I feel like I'm going to be expected to go out there and win this fight. I'll probably be a favorite. There's pressure right there too. I put pressure on myself. I need to finish. It's been too long.
Johnson to the end zone, caught. Guess who? C.J. Jefferson.
And in talking to the coaches this week, they said that's your playmaker. That's the guy that Jerome Johnson has the most confidence in. And there you are on 4th and goal, and you throw it right at the goal line, right at the yellow line at the wall. Terrific throw. Nice catch.
Great execution there for New Mexico. They had to have a play.
Fill in the blank. Jeremiah Love is the best running back prospect since. We see one listing here from BetMGM that has Saquon, Bijan, then Jeremiah Love over Christian McCaffrey, over Zeke, obviously over Ashton Genty. I mean, there's a lot. Jahmyr Gibbs all the way down. Caroline Fenton, what do we think of this list here? Like, that's a lot of love for Love, especially going above Christian McCaffrey.
Where's Derrick Henry? How is Derrick Henry not on this list? Derrick Henry won a Heisman Trophy. Derrick Henry erasure in this list.
Wait, so the list is since 2016.
Since 2016.
2016.
Okay,
yeah, there we go. So
that's an important part in big, bold black letters that I missed. But but that's how I feel about Derrick Henry. Just so everybody knows, I love Derrick Henry. Over Christian McCaffrey is might be pretty rich for my blood. I mean, especially considering Christian McCaffrey was a finalist for the Heisman Trophy in back-to-back years. So it's hard to compare. Whenever, Christian McCaffrey, his last year in college was 2016, 2017, the game has changed so much. It is a little bit difficult to compare. I would probably give Christian McCaffrey the nudge, but if you wanted to make the debate and the case for Jeremiah Love above Christian McCaffrey, you're not going to hear me throw a big old stink about it. I'm shocked to see Ashton Genty as low as he is on this list. I mean, we were talking about Ashton Genty being the greatest running back prospect since Barry Sanders. Ashton Genty single-handedly carried a group of 5 team to the college football playoff. Remember, Boise State had a first-round bye in the college football playoff. We were talking more about Boise State and that 2024 season. Years are hard to keep track of. 2024 season than we ever have in my entire lifetime. But I think that just goes to show how many great running backs that we've had over the last decade or so. It really has been a running back renaissance in college football over the past couple of years.
Well, we'll bring in somebody that knows running back better than anybody. Rashad Jennings joins us here, former NFL running back and winner of Dancing with the Stars. Rashad, we appreciate your time, man. All right, so give me your thoughts. Jeremiah Love, we just had a list up there. They're saying that he is the 3rd best prospect we've seen since 2016. Put him ahead of Christian McCaffrey. Where are you on Jeremiah Love?
When it comes to prospects, those are all projective and speculative, right? All of these guys are great, right? Ashton Genty, you were just speaking about him briefly. He had an amazing career package, almost surpassing one of the greatest running backs of all time. And Barry Sanders, so Leonard Fournette. You think about Gibbs. All of these players are amazing, but once you get to the NFL, it's a completely different game, right? Because the NFL draft, and then getting into the actual combine, running around in shorts and underwear has nothing to do with actually playing the game and playing the sport. So, but as far as his ability, his tangibilities, his skill set, his durability, his height, weight, ability to catch out the backfield, and especially how the NFL is actually played now, I am not mad at him being that high. I think he can do any and everything that you ask him to do, and he's more than just a physical runner. But now, obviously, if we project this into the NFL and remark who's the top 5 in the NFL from this list, I think it may change. But however, talking about Love, who he is, the person he is, and I've actually got a chance to talk to several of his coaches, he's a different guy. He's somebody that you're never going to have to worry about getting in trouble. He's somebody that's going to be the first in, last out of the weight room. He wants to play the game. He's inquisitive, and he's just a freakish athlete.
We've had the privilege to talk to Jeremiah Love on the show a couple of times, and that comes through, that he is so no nonsense. He loves football. He's just going to be a total and complete student of the game. But you mentioned how different the game is going from the college level to the NFL level. We've seen some of these great college running backs, take some time to ramp up at the NFL level. What is so different? Why is that leap so difficult in your experience?
As the speed of the game. It's not the speed of the people. It's always the speed of the game. And let's be very clear, a 4.4 in college is the same speed as a 4.4 in the NFL. The only difference is I don't care how fast you can run in a straight line, because that's not the game. What it is having to consistently make decisions quicker. If the hole is open, Jeremiah Love, for, let's say, 0.7 seconds at college. In the NFL now, that hole is open for 0.3 seconds, right? So what's changed? Everybody's still running 4.4s and 4.5s out there. They're making decisions quicker. So collegiate to the NFL is decision making. That's what changes. And you have to become a student of the game. You have to see things before it happens. And sometimes you have to make educated guesses on where you think the hole is going to be and hit it. Now, a lot of it is reaction, but that's just the nature of the game. And I think that goes across the board of every single position. It's just a faster game, not faster people.
So, Rashad, I want your insights because I'm always transparent on air. I'm a lifelong diehard Raiders fan, right? So I covered the draft when Ashton Genty was drafted, right? And everybody started screaming, you can't take a running back. And my answer to that is like, I get it, but also my team sucks and they need dynamic playmakers. And Ashton Jeanty looks like a dynamic playmaker. So when you hear people say, hey, if your team's bad, you shouldn't draft a running back, what would you say to that?
Well, I would say I understand it. If your team is bad, don't get a running back. But that's a staple position right now. There's I would say I look at it like this: there's combinations that you need, right? If you're not going to have a standout running back, what do you need? A standout quarterback. If you don't have a standout quarterback and you don't have a standout receiver, it really doesn't even matter who's in your backfield unless you have a standout offensive line. There's combinations of success in the NFL. It's not about one position. That's why it's ultimately the greatest team sport. However, anybody that's overlooking Ashton Jeanty that's on the board and somebody who's durable, strong, and actually is going to be there for a long time, I think, barring anybody's injury, right? I think he's somebody that you want on your team. And I think that the Vegas Raiders, I was there when we was in Oakland. Shout out to the Bay. But the Vegas Raiders played a smart move. Now, I tell this to any and everybody as a running back, and we all agree to this. All running backs run the same when there's nowhere to run, besides Barry Sanders. He's the only one that was able to do something when there's no holes. All right. And so I think you just got to build around it, right? You got to get an infrastructure, you got to get a system into play, but who you hand the ball off to, that's a big staple in your quarterback's best friend.
I'm so tired of the case that people make of running backs aren't a valuable position when we're coming off the heels of the Super Bowl MVP being a running back. When we look at Saquon Barkley in the 2024 season, had a very strong case to be league and Super Bowl MVP. You're looking at all of these great teams over the last couple of years. One thing a lot of them have in common is a solid ground game. But of course, we see Kenneth Walker going from Seattle to the Kansas City Chiefs. What do you think he's going to add to that team?
Man, I love that dynamic over there with KC and having Kenneth Walker. He's special. And let's make no doubt about it, too. Give a shout out to the Seattle Seahawks and Cabernet. With the reason why they were able to let go of a Kenneth Walker is because who they had backing him up. So those two tandems were working really well in Seattle. But Kenneth Walker was the beast. He really was. And I think the two-back system was able to keep him healthy through the duration of the season, enabling him that in playoffs, he was one of the freshest backs in the NFL. Because of that, he was able to run that way. And I think he's a different breed, right? He's a gymnastics guy. He can do backflips, just do cannonballs. Like he's just a rare breed. And so for him, pairing up, can catch out the backfield, he's a hard-nosed runner in Kansas City. They got a weapon over there that they're coming back with a lot of speed. But he's a dog. And I think the position is undervalued, quite frankly, just because we pay so much attention and give so many stats and credibility to one position, and that's the quarterback, right? We think that's a win or loss stat is the quarterback. Everything's on him. It's not, but we understand the market. We know it depends on where you live at. The same house in California versus the same house in the state of Virginia, the prices are different. We get it. And that's what you're paying for. You're paying for real estate and what other people are willing to pay for. But as far as the market, as far as inside that locker room market, that infrastructure, we know that the running back position is very important.
So if I'm starting a team today and I call Rashad Jennings and I say, okay, I get to pick any running back in the league. But I got one pick. Who's the first running back? Like, who do you think the guy is that you should put on any team?
Bijan Robinson. Yeah. I think he right now, if you're starting a team and you need a running back, he can do any and everything out of the backfield. And that includes catching. He can actually pass the ball. Have y'all seen him pass? He actually can pass the football. He can pass protect. He can run. He can jump. He can juke. He can stay healthy. He does all of the things. And if you change him to any style of system, I think he works. Next is Christian McCaffrey because he's a consistent, hardworking guy. Matter of fact, these two ironically train with each other. There's something about the offseason, and there's a difference between an NFL running back and a pro running back. Matter of fact, there's a difference between NFL players and pro players. NFL players get kids to come in with buku amounts of talent. They dominated college. They come in and they can compete. But if they get hurt, deal with adversity, new system, new language, not the top dog, they can kind of fall off quickly. I was the 23rd running back drafted in my class, and I outlasted everybody besides Rashawn McCoy. Pros come in, learn the system, understand X's and O's, durable. In the off season, they understand being an entrepreneur of your time. And the reason why I like Bijan Robinson and the reason why I like Christian McCaffrey, and that's not a knock on indictment to anybody else, is just simply because I know how hard they diligently work. That's what separates you in the off season. So I expect Bijan to come back with another heck of a surprise season, just like McCaffrey.
He is so much fun to watch. But I do want to go back to one of your former teams and one of your former teammates, Odell Beckham Jr. There's been some rumors and some rumblings that there could be a reunion with he and the New York Giants. Do you see this as a potential possibility?
I think it's just fun for the NFL. First of all, that's my guy, right? I shot him a text. I was like, man, just do it. Just do it for the storyline. Just go back. You know, the NFL would appreciate him coming back. I think a bunch of fans across the country and across the world, actually, he's a global icon. Would just enjoy seeing that number 13 on the sideline. Do it. Just give him. He gonna get in the end zone somehow. We want to see what he gonna do. Like, just the fandom wants to see this happen. But aside from the fandom, man, the locker room, the type of energy he brings to a team, the type of confidence he brings to a team, the kind of excitement, that kind of magnitude cannot be drafted. It only can be signed, and that's through an Odell Beckham Jr. I think he's a rare commodity to the NFL. He's one of the most premier global icons of the entire NFL all time. And he's available, he's healthy, and he still can play. So it would make sense for his Cinderella story to go back home, pairing up with a championship run. I think he should do it. I think he can do it. And I'm going to keep texting him that he needs to do it.
You're going to come out, if he comes out of retirement, does he? You're going to come out and join him? You know, just maybe get
Hey,
on
listen.
with him?
Hey, listen, I can play ball. Now, I know how it go. You know, you're old running back, you're tired of whatever. If they need somebody, I can get it down. Listen, let me know. Matter of fact, I might even come over there and coach. I just want to be involved. I just want to be involved one way or the other. They need some water. I'll be the water boy. If he comes back, that level of excitement in New York is unmatched. Can't explain it.
That's awesome.
You guys can follow him on Twitter, X, at Rashad Jennings, obviously. Congrats on the Dancing with the Stars. We didn't get to talk about your dance moves. Next time, we'll talk about Dancing with the Stars. Rashad, man, I enjoyed watching you play as a fan of the Raiders. Loved having you on the show today, man. It's awesome to hang out with you.
Appreciate y'all. Y'all take care.
Thanks,
Great
Rashad.
stuff from Rashad. I think it just broke it that he's coming out. He's going to play for the Giants next year. All right, coming up next, LeBron out here breaking news about Memphis. Everybody's freaking out. We'll tell you about it next.
Two in motion, quarterback drops back, looks, throws the ball wide open over the middle. Oh, what a hit and what an interception. Huge defensive play. Absolutely beast mode. Jaden Rowe able to get the pick, and we have our first turnover of the game.
He used his head. Well, a tip drill to his teammate off his head.
I was super proud of Gable's fight. I think that Gable really showed tonight that he is going to be great. There's several questions that we got answered. What is he going to do when he gets hit? That was the big one. Everybody's asking it. All the coaches are looking at it. Gable took a spinning heel kick to the jaw and went like this. Nothing. No, he didn't get out of the process. As a matter of fact, he went right back in that guy's face. So that answers a huge question. Also takes away another avenue to victory that all his future opponents will be looking at.
We're going to give you a name. You tell us whether it's a real college athlete or if our producers just made it up out of thin air. Okay, so collegian or concoction. The first one we'll give you is Fat Brooks. Now, for clarity, fat is P-H-A-T.
That is a concoction.
That's a collegian. He's a guard for Central Michigan.
Fat Brooks.
Fat Brooks, yes.
But you know what, Ariel, as well? I actually think this is a wonderful, wonderful thing for the UFC. Because if you've got the UFC heavyweight champion whose profile has already risen incredibly over the last week, and by the way, we will continue to drive his profile with our promotional machine. And I believe that when he fights again, he will be in a much better position commercially. He will be a much bigger star.
Being in Memphis on a random Thursday, you guys have to move. Just go over to Nashville. They got everything. Might have pulled an Eli Manning and not shown up if the Grizzlies drafted me. That from LeBron James talking about Memphis, and he's not the only one. In fairness, it's now all over social media. Several NBA players have come out and made it clear they don't like Memphis. The question is this really a big deal? Because should they move to Nashville? Everybody's trying to put them into Nashville. Caroline, you in for a move from the Grizzlies?
No, I'm not. And let me just say, when you start to compare Memphis to Nashville and you start to talk about how much more fun Nashville is more fun. Like that rubs Memphis people the wrong way. Like if you're not familiar with the state of Tennessee is 3 different states in and of itself. It's West Tennessee, which is Memphis, Middle Tennessee, which is Nashville, and East Tennessee, which is Knoxville, Smoky Mountain area. Those 3 areas of the state of Tennessee could not be more different. Memphis people do not like Nashville. Nashville people do not like Memphis. Like, it is what it is. So that's, I think, a big reason why you're hearing a big uproar from the city of Memphis. It's not just you're dissing their city, but you're also comparing them to Nashville. They don't like either of those things. I'm not down for a move for the Grizzlies for a couple of reasons, and I will point out my biases before I address this. I lived in Nashville for 4 years. I love Nashville. I would move back to Nashville in a heartbeat. My family's from Memphis. My mom is from Memphis. My grandparents live in Memphis. I have aunts and uncles and cousins that live in Memphis. Been to Memphis hundreds of times in my lifetime. It feels like a second hometown to me. I have a sweet spot in my heart for Memphis. And whenever people talk about how bad of a city it is, I respond and say, well, you're just not trying hard enough. Because there's so many great parts about the city of Memphis. And it's easy to just crap on Beale Street and call it a bad city when it's really a wonderful, wonderful city. Third is I'm from St. Louis, and I'm sensitive when it comes to relocating teams that mean a lot to a city because I lived it and experiencing it with my hometown of how much it lost whenever the St. Louis Rams left and went back to Los Angeles. So I don't think a move makes sense for a couple of reasons. Memphians ride or die for anything Memphis, and it's because it feels like an us against the world mentality. Memphians love the Grizzlies because the Grizzlies are theirs. They will ride or die for the Grizzlies. Now, Nashville, and I love Nashville. I love the sports fans in Nashville. But Nashville, as a whole, is kind of a fair weather sports fan city. Not to say that every Nashville sports fan is a fair weather fan, because I have talked to on the radio and have experienced firsthand so many diehard Nashville sports fans. But Nashville is a transient city. There's not a lot of people that are actually born and raised in Nashville and have roots in Nashville. And Nashville also has a city where there's a lot of other stuff going on. You don't, a Grizzly game in Memphis might be the biggest thing happening in the city, whereas a Predators game in Nashville is like the 15th best thing to do on a Saturday in Nashville. Love the Predators, but that's just the kind of city it is. It's an entertainment district. So if you add another professional sports team in Nashville, I frankly don't think that you're going to have the same level of passion and support for a team in Nashville than you have in Memphis. And since when are we putting teams in cities just because of how fun the city is? If that was the case, we wouldn't have any teams in Cleveland. Sorry, Mike from Cleveland. We wouldn't have any teams in Utah. Sorry, Utah. But fun is not necessarily a prerequisite for having professional sports teams, in my opinion.
Yeah, look, you're 1,000% right about that. And, I think realistically also admitting I lived in Nashville for more than 20 years. I know Nashville well. I also did a weekly radio interview in Memphis for a decade. So I love both cities. I've had the chance to spend a lot of time in both cities. They have very different identities, and that's okay. They're very different cities in the way that they thrive and what people look for. So they're different cities in what they connect to and how they connect. Nashville doesn't necessarily, the Nashville I moved to in the late 90s, far different than the Nashville that exists today, 100%. But you're right, it is a transient city. It's a city that almost lost the Nashville Predators about a decade ago because they couldn't put enough butts in seats when the team was historically bad over and over and over again, and they couldn't seem to get the interest they needed to get. People forget the Preds were actually on the verge of being sold and relocated to Canada. So we forget sometimes what doesn't work. In fact, the Titans have an issue in that city connecting to the fans. In general, there's a reason that more often than not, Nissan Stadium is overtaken by visiting fans. So to your point, transient city wouldn't make for a great basketball environment at all. So to me, yeah, Nashville's a more fun city, but also kindly, who cares? Like if LeBron doesn't love hanging out in Memphis, who cares? We're all allowed to have different cities that we like or dislike. In fact, LeBron pointed out Milwaukee is one of his least favorite cities in the NBA to go to. He pointed that out loudly. Milwaukee was one of my favorite cities to have a day off in when I toured in country music. Spent 300 days a year on the road for several years. I loved days off in Milwaukee. It was one of my favorites. I hated days off in Portland, Oregon. I don't like hanging out in Portland. It doesn't mean that I have anything against the city or the people or any of those things. Just wasn't a great vibe or experience for me. It wasn't a place that I had a lot of fun. I don't love Portland. That doesn't mean Portland needs to turn around and care. I don't understand why people care that NBA players don't like their experience in Memphis, because ultimately they're not paid to go there and hang out. They're not paid there to go and figure out what to do for fun. They're paid to go play basketball. So if I'm the city of Memphis, who gives a damn if the fan or the players, when they come in, like the hotel? Who gives a damn if LeBron says your city stinks? Who gives a damn what any of these players think? Because at the end of the day, they're paid to go there to play basketball. So as long as they show up and they play basketball, that's all they need to do. Look, we've talked a lot about the fact that we're both involved with the Indoor Football League. I'm in a different city almost every single weekend. Some of them might be better than others. Some I enjoy more than others. Does it mean that it's a personal discredit to the city if I say I don't love one? No. Also, is it something that I would particularly sit in front of a microphone and say about the cities I actively go to? Probably not. I wouldn't handle this the way the NBA players have handled it. But when they're asked specifically what cities they don't like going to, and they give you an honest answer, I guess my question to all of that is, who gives a damn? At the end of the day, the Grizzlies don't need to move to Nashville just to make sure that LeBron or any other NBA player has a better experience while they're waiting to go play the game, Caroline. Memphis needs to worry about doing what's best for the Memphis Grizzlies. And if what's best for the Memphis Grizzlies is maintaining that connection to the city of Memphis, then who cares what anybody outside of Memphis, from Stephen A. all the way to LeBron, has to say about it?
Yeah, since when do we start moving professional franchises just to cater to LeBron James? Just because LeBron wants to go sip frosé on a rooftop on Broadway. Like, sorry that you don't like Memphis, like cry me a river. I will say, if we're talking about basketball in the state of Tennessee, before we're going to move the Grizzlies and before we're going to create an even bigger divide between the cities of Memphis and Nashville, and believe you me, it exists, what we need to be talking about is getting a WNBA franchise in the state of Tennessee. I think that the WNBA missed big time in not making either Nashville or Knoxville or Memphis, and it would probably be Nashville, but not making Nashville one of the expansion NBA cities. I mean, the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame is in Knoxville. There is such a deep-seated tradition and rich history of women's basketball in the state of Tennessee, and it is in large part because of Pat Summitt and how she built the Lady Vols. The Lady Vols are their own brand in and of itself. I think the Lady Vols have one of the strongest brands in women's college basketball, second only to UConn. That's what we need to be talking about, not moving the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies aren't broken, so no need to fix it. What's broken is the fact that we don't have professional women's basketball in the state of Tennessee. I think that should be the next city on the list of the WNBA expansion teams.
I had the chance over the weekend to talk to WNBPA Vice President Alicia Clark, and the first thing she said, as somebody that played her basketball at Middle Tennessee, is how do we not have a WNBA team in Nashville? We agree on that. Keep the Grizzlies where they are. Figure out a way to get the W in Nashville. We've got everything figured out. Coming up next, we'll talk to somebody who has the entire NFL draft figured out. Robert May is going to join us. We'll get his thoughts on Fernando.
What do you think was kind of misunderstood about George Pickens prior to him arriving in Dallas?
I don't know. It was so many things that I feel like that was misunderstood. They feel like his attitude was off. And I mean, he come in the league at 19 years old. What do you expect out of a guy and you want him to be your receiver one?
Right.
I feel like that's kind of crazy. But keeping him within the guidelines, letting him be himself at the same time, I feel like was probably the best thing for him. And I knew that it was gonna have him comfortable here in Dallas.
What was your impression of him? Do you feel like you have a friendship with Giannis now?
I feel like he was just my friend. Like, I didn't even see him as just a basketball player, Giannis Antetokounmpo. I was just like that's just my guy. Cause we were just chilling. Like he took me to his home. He took me to his first we did his first dunk in his neighborhood. So like he was just showing me around. And I think we still check up on each other. I just need to go to one of his games, which I promised him.
Sending everybody in motion. He waits, pulls it, throws it, big completion. Can they get on the board? And he is in. That's a touchdown for CJ Wyndham. 2 touchdowns last week. Now he gets his first touchdown of this game.
This is a spectacular play by Harper. I mean, because this is a zone read, and it's really an RPO. Harper sees it and then is able to hit Wyndham coming across the field in a matter of milliseconds there.
Who is your first player to team fit that you absolutely love?
Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end of Oregon, to the Chiefs. And this was basically a post-combine reaction, basically Vernon Davis style numbers athletically. And so I think it was validating to see kind of him put those numbers up athletically, his speed, explosion, change of direction. He feels like a player that is not going to drop very far in this draft, especially in a draft where there aren't a ton of blue chip players.
We talked about this on today's show, but I think Kirk going to Vegas and starting for a good chunk of this year is great for Mendoza. That from Robert Mays, host of the Athletic Football Show. He joins us now. And Robert, usually I would be home. And if I was home doing the show, you would see a Raiders helmet behind me and a Max Crosby jersey hanging on the wall. So give it to me, brother. Let me know why I should be wildly excited about Mendo being the backup to Kirk.
I think it's just a really good situation overall. I think he's a promising prospect. I think there's a lot to like about Fernando Mendoza if you just look at everything he's bringing to the table. But you watch that offense in Indiana, and it was a very RPO-heavy offense, and I think there's going to be a learning curve when he gets to the NFL. And having a guy like Kirk Cousins to kind of help that progress and help that transition, I just think it's a really good setup. And then you combine that with the kind of the mentor potential and just what Kirk can be as like somebody to show him how to be a pro. Like this idea that you have to throw the first overall pick into the fire immediately. We just don't have to do it this way. If your team can endure 4 to 6 weeks of, this is a learning process, we can lose some games, but this is in the interest of how our team is going to be and how our quarterback is going to look 2 years from now. I still think that's the best way to do it. And by all accounts, with everything they're saying, it does seem like the Raiders are trying to go down that path.
I'm with you 1000%. I think baptism by fire is a bad way to go about it with young quarterback, especially with a team like the Raiders that had such a bad offensive line last season. But with that being said, who starts more games in Vegas in 2026? Is it Kirk Cousins or is it Fernando Mendoza?
I think it's Fernando Mendoza. If Kirk starts the first 4 to 6 games of the year, I think that's probably more realistic because at some point, if you're losing games, if the locker room knows that Fernando Mendoza is better than Kirk Cousins, there are diminishing returns and there are some downsides to playing Kirk longer than he has to play. But I think allowing Fernando Mendoza to see how the NFL works for a month, for 6 weeks, to get more familiar with the offense. I remember having a conversation with Sam Darnold 2 years ago when he went to Minneapolis, and talking to him about how working in that offensive system in San Francisco with Clint Kubiak kind of reframed his understanding of what a quarterback in the NFL should be and how he should approach his job. Giving Fernando Mendoza all of training camp and a month and a half of the season to kind of understand that same mindset before you throw him in there, I just think there's a lot of benefit to that.
All right, so let's talk about the other quarterback everybody loves talking about, Ty Simpson. So here we go. I'm going to make you the gods of the NFL draft. If you controlled the whole NFL draft and you could get common sense to everybody, where should he be drafted? Like, around where does he belong, and where do you think he'll actually end up?
I think he belongs somewhere in the second round. I think in the back half of the second round is probably where a guy like Ty Simpson should go. But quarterbacks, your guy Nate Tice at Yahoo always says this: there is a half round inflation on quarterbacks every single time, or a full round, where these guys go often way higher than they should just because there's such a premium on the position. The question with Ty Simpson is going to be, is there a team that has a level of urgency that feels like they may need to take him in the back half of the first round? We talked about this on our show last week. I just don't know who that natural team would be in this draft. Last year, it was so obvious that the Giants, for so many different reasons, needed to find a quarterback in that draft. And I think that led to the aggressiveness and the urgency you saw with coming back into the first round with Jackson Dart. I don't know who that team is this year. I think there are more teams in the situation the Saints were in last year where we know we're so early in the process here. If a guy falls to us, fine. We're willing to take a dice roll on it. We think that makes sense with our timeline. I'm not sure there are teams that are in line with where the Giants were last year. I think there are teams that might be in line with where the Saints were last year.
If that team isn't Pittsburgh at 21, then where do the Steelers go?
It's a great question. I mean, there's a chance they punt on the quarterback overall in this draft again and just roll with Aaron Rodgers and the guys, Will Howard, in this year and just say, hey, we're going to put all of our chips into the 2027 basket. I just wonder, are they really scarred by what happened with Kenny Pickett, where we're overdrafting a guy who does not deserve to go in this range of the draft, and you saw how that worked out for them. I'm much more interested in, like, would he fall to the Steelers in the second round rather than them taking him at 21, because I think that's probably where Ty Simpson deserves to go.
All right, Robert, I'm going to be the voice of the rest of the league for a second because all we talk about is Fernando. So if I'm the Jets today and I'm sitting here with the number 2 overall pick, who should I be just excited about that my team's going to get that's going to make an immediate difference? It's going to change the fortunes of the New York Jets.
I think there are a lot of defensive players in that range that you're going to be really happy about being part of your roster. I'm curious which direction they go because everyone's a little bit of a different flavor, and the positions even available in the top 10 of this year's draft are a lot different than they would be in a typical year. I mean, Arvell Reese and what he brings to the table. Arvell Reese is, by all accounts, a fantastic off-ball linebacker prospect and one of the better off-ball linebacker prospects we've seen in a very long time. But can you take an off-ball linebacker at number 2? Should he be more of a pass rusher in the NFL? So I think everybody in that range, whether it's Arvell Reese and some of the position questions, whether it's Ruben Bain and some of the physical profile questions, these are all very good players. I think these are all just very good players who come with a different set of questions than guys that are typically drafted in the top 5 or the top 10.
And a couple more guys that might fit that profile of non-premier positions but look to be elite prospects, Jeremiah Love and Caleb Downs. Like, taking a running back or a safety top 5 doesn't feel like the best roster building strategy, but what is your philosophy on those two guys, and are they deserving of a top 5, top 10 pick?
In this year's draft, they might be. And I think that's what is so complicated about this year's crop of players. And, we have this discussion a lot. We have it every single year when we have a running back that is this type of prospect. And you just look at the way that positional value in the NFL works on several different levels. And with running back, I do think it's starting to change a little bit. Like, when you look at the best running backs in the NFL, almost all of them, the top 5, 8-ish guys in the league are mostly players that were drafted in the first 2 rounds. So this idea that you can find a running back on day 3 of the draft or deeper into the draft, that is kind of true, but you still probably aren't finding a difference-making running back in that range of the draft. The problem is the way we reward running backs in the market has not necessarily caught up with that idea. You look at a very simple example of this. What Kenneth Walker got in free agency, and I don't think Kenneth Walker's quite this level of player, but then you look at what JSN got in free agency. Kenneth Walker's getting $15 million a year. JSN's getting $42 million a year. And so if you're going to pay a running back, if Jeremiah Love is the 4th overall pick, he's getting $11 million a year. That already puts him within shouting distance of the highest paid running backs in the NFL. Other positions, there's just such a bigger gap between what you're paying a rookie on that contract and what premium players at that position get. And so you're just not getting the most bang for your buck you possibly can on that rookie contract. And that's assuming the guy is good. And so I just think there are so many different layers to the consideration when you're thinking about what positions you have to take in the top 10 because of what type of rewards are waiting for you on the other side if that guy does work out.
I also think, Robert, sometimes we have to factor in position off. Like, when we're talking about the drafts, there's always a run because we understand that, hey, once we get to this level, the difference between day 1 and day 2 is going to be pretty drastic. Is there a position in this year's draft that you feel like, man, there's going to have to be a run on day 1 because when we get to day 2, the drop-off is substantial?
It's interesting. I think there are a lot of offensive tackles that people are looking at in like the back half of the first round, potentially up into the start of the second round. I wonder how many of those guys go in the first round, because offensive tackle is another one of those positions where guys get a little bit overdrafted because of the scarcity and because of how valuable those players are. So if guys like the tackle from Clemson or like the tackle from Arizona State get drafted in the back half of the first round rather than waiting into day two, do we walk into the second round of the draft without a lot of options at that position? I think receiver is one where you'll be able to find some options in day two. This is kind of a strange receiver draft where it's very deep, but not necessarily filled with like top 10 type of prospects. But offensive tackle, I think, is that position where if we have a run on them in the back half of the first round, which we've seen often throughout the years that happens, is that one where it starts to get a little bit dry when we get into Friday.
And obviously, there's a certain level of pressure on the Raiders. We all know the Raiders are taking Fernando Mendoza. There's a certain amount of this better be your guy if you're, drafting him with the number 1 overall pick. But outside of the Raiders, who do you think this draft is most critical for?
I think it's a huge draft for the Dolphins. They have 7 top 100 picks. That just doesn't happen very often. I think it's happened 5 or 6 times since like 2010. And the 7 has only happened once. The Cardinals in 2024, I believe, were the last team that had 7, the only team in the last like 15 years that have had 7 top 100 picks. So this is a huge draft for Miami as they try to reset their entire franchise. I think it's a big draft for the Cowboys. Having those 2 first-round picks after the Micah Parsons trade, their offense is Super Bowl ready immediately. And so they really do need to get an injection of talent on the defensive side of the ball to get the most out of that offense. And the last one that I keep coming back to, I think it's a really big draft for the Ravens because they have those picks back now in the Max Crosby trade. And I really do think that their reputation has taken a little bit of a ding over the last year. They were one of these organizations that really did get the benefit of the doubt consistently with how they operated, the decisions that they made. And now you get to a place where you're firing your head coach, you're resetting there. I think that the front office took a little bit of a PR hit in how everything with the Max Crosby trade went. And I think that a lot more people are kind of sitting there being like, does this team deserve more scrutiny in how the last few years have gone rather than us just kind of hand waving away and being like, oh no, the Ravens are well run. The Ravens do it right. And so I think there is just a little bit more focus on what this draft is going to look like for Baltimore because they are at a pretty important inflection point.
In Howie Roseman, we trust, obviously, but given the amount of noise that there is around Philadelphia, do you believe that the Eagles are going to have some sort of a draft strategy towards maybe hedging their life without Jalen Hurts?
I mean, Jalen Hurts or A.J. Brown, and I think that's the first 2 rounds of the Eagles draft. It's going to be really interesting and what sort of off-ramps they're trying to take from the most high-profile players on their team. And with a lot of other organizations, when you have a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, who has won a Super Bowl, who has shown you that he can get your team to the mountaintop, he's a highly paid guy, you just assume, there's no way they would try to figure out some sort of alternative to this player and this version of who this team is. But the Eagles have done this before. They gave Carson Wentz that contract and then almost immediately drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round. They've consistently pumped resources into that position to try to give themselves contingency plans and different pathways when they feel like they might need one. And them taking a quarterback in the first 2 rounds of this draft, I would find it very surprising, but I think it's more plausible for them than it would be for almost any other team in the league.
So we do something on this show called the Football Vibes Index, and that's our very analytical and scientific evaluation of the vibes. Obviously, the vibes in Philadelphia are off. The vibes are bad. If you had to diagnose what's going wrong with the Eagles right now, what is it?
The vibes from Philadelphia are always terrible. That's the funniest part about the Eagles is like there are 2 things that are happening in Philly over the last 5 years. They're either playing in the Super Bowl or everyone's getting fired. There's absolutely no in between with this organization. Like that's truly what happens. It's like they have an on year and an off year. And whatever happens that year, either you're going to the Super Bowl or your offensive coordinator is getting fired. I think that to me, a lot of this is driven by some dissatisfaction with what the offense has looked like over the last couple of years. And I think a lot of that is driven just from an outsider's perspective and from some of the reporting that's happened there by the quarterback's preferences and limitations. I think it's really telling that the offense and the passing game have looked similar over the last few seasons since Shane Steichen, with different offensive coordinators running the show. And I think that's because of the way that Jalen Hurts wants to play. And I think it's because of the way that Jalen Hurts has to play. And I think that's one of the reasons that you have a guy like A.J. Brown being a little bit dissatisfied, where you have them cycling through coaches. And so Jalen Hurts has obviously shown an ability to win at the highest level. But I do think that his relative limitations and how he wants to play the position can run you into some roadblocks as an offense. And I think that we have seen that happen consistently for them over the last couple of years.
Do you believe we'll be looking at any blockbuster trades going into this year's draft?
It's a great question. A lot of the guys that I thought would be traded, either there are timelines that they have to be traded on, like A.J. Brown, or with a guy like Max Crosby, that we just... Obviously, I think that's run its course. I think he's going to be a Raider, and I think that's probably all settled there. The Eagles are another team I'd go back to, like the Jordan Davis, the Jalen Carter stuff. I'd at least be like, I'd have it on my radar. And again, just because of who the Eagles are and their willingness to do some things that might seem a little bit unconventional. Like, is there a world where they're worried about his shoulder, where they just paid Jordan Davis, where they have a lot of expensive players on the roster, and the right team for the right price could potentially blow them away with a deal? So that's the one that I've just kind of had my eye on over the last couple months, since we heard some of the whispers about whether he could be available. But there aren't any other big name players, I think, that really come to mind.
You guys should check out the Athletic Football Show. It's one of my favorites. Also follow him on Twitter, X, at Robert Mays. Robert, appreciate your time, man. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for the expertise.
Anytime, guys.
It's great stuff from Robert this morning, breaking down the draft. By the way, Yahoo will cover all of the draft for you, so stick with us. Coming up next, big night in Buffalo that has a lot of other sports fans wondering why their team's now the worst in sports.
Who are some of the other like UFC combat sports golfers that we might not know about? Like, who's sneaky good?
You know what, man? I don't think there really is anybody else. Daniel Cormier is starting to play. He's absolutely
How's his game?
awful.
Oh,
he's
no.
awful. He talks so much trash. He is so bad. But I tell you what, though, he is an athlete, and he's just like it. Golf's like anything. The more you do it, the better you get.
The Dallas Mavericks, are they still taking Cooper Flag, Corey?
He is legitimately, as a 6'8" wing who does everything at a high level. Shows up every day, competes his ass off.
The way his handle has improved since high school to Duke to now suggests that this guy can be a MVP candidate, not just a multi-time All-Star as a role player, a high-end star role player, but a mega star.
Do you feel pressure that this is America's birthday, this is the White House, you have to represent?
Hell yeah. I do feel pressure. I feel pressure that, I got to go out there and represent for the United States, and I got to go out there and I feel like I'm going to be expected to go out there and win this fight. I'll probably be a favorite. There's pressure right there too. I put pressure on myself. I need to finish. It's been too long.
Johnson to the end zone, caught. Guess who? C.J. Jefferson.
And in talking to the coaches this week, they said that's your playmaker. That's the guy that Jerome Johnson has the most confidence in. And there you are on 4th and goal, and you throw it right at the goal line, right at the yellow line at the wall. Terrific throw. Nice catch.
Great execution there for New Mexico. They had to have a play.
With the Buffalo Sabres, a 14-year playoff drought today. A look at the droughts that still stand tall. The New York Jets, 15 years. The Angels of Anaheim, 11. Pirates, 10. Hornets, 9. That one, to change. Red Wings, 9 years. Some of those droughts are standing out because the Sabres finally did it. World's best cup of coffee. No, they actually qualified for the playoffs. So, big night for Buffalo. Figured, though, that Caroline, we could take a look at this. By the way, producer Josh, massive Sabres fan, is over the moon. What's the worst pro team to be a fan of now?
Ooh, this is a fun game, and I love this. The two teams that instantly come to mind are the Browns and the Jets. Easily. I mean, I think the worst position to be in as a fan in sports is when when the owner of your favorite team is just incompetent. The Jets have proven that ownership is incompetent. When we start signing and drafting players because of Madden ratings, incompetence, and there's really no path for the Jets to get better. I mean, we've got Aaron Glenn over here promising that Geno Smith is going to get the Jets to the promised land, like the bar floor. And then you have the Browns, who have been so bad for so long, it doesn't feel like they have a path either. And we also have an owner who's fully guaranteeing contracts to a man who is going through a very public legal battle and has shown a long history and a habit of predatory behavior. So that's not great. The other team that comes to mind for me also is the Angels. Artie Moreno, not a great owner in Major League Baseball. And at one point, you have Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani both wearing Angels jerseys. We're talking about two generational players. Shohei Ohtani, maybe the greatest person to ever pick up a baseball, and you were still losing. Like, that is a different level of devastation of, like, it doesn't matter who's on this team, we're still going to suck. So I think it's those three for me. Those are my top three.
So I went back and forth on this one, and I think you're right on the NFL side. But I struggle to make an NFL team the worst to root for in all sports because you only have to watch it over the course of the year 17 times. So when your favorite team stinks, which is usually my favorite team, you get kicked to the no-no places 17 times, you handle it. If your favorite team is a baseball team and they suck, you're reminded of it every day, over and over and over again. So that's why the more I kept thinking about this, the more I've circled around. The real answer to this question is the Oakland A's. And this one hurts my heart because let me be clear, I root for every single team that becomes a Las Vegas sports team. So the A's, who are now maybe the Sacramento A's about to become the Vegas A's, are going to become my favorite baseball team. And I fully understand that when that happens, the day that the A's play their first game in Vegas, I will take my little Dodgers hat from the last 2 years and I will put it in a little case and I'll lock it away and say it was fun. I'm now a Vegas A's fan. And when you think about what A's fans specifically have gone through, okay, so your team sucks. All right, that's fine. Your team sucks over and over and over again. That's not the best. Your owner won't spend any money. That's even worse. Then your team comes out and says, you know what? Not only do we suck, not only will we not spend money, but we're going to leave because we don't like Oakland anymore, only to go play in Sacramento in a minor league ballpark that they can't really fit anybody in, wearing jerseys that sometimes say Sacramento and sometimes just say A's because they can't put a city name on it. And then they tell everybody they're going to move to Vegas, but there are plenty of people in and around Las Vegas that still dispute whether the Fisher family has the actual money they say they have to finish the build of the stadium. God knows, I don't know. I have smart people telling me there's no way it won't happen. I have smart people telling me there's no way it will happen. I have smart people telling me that there's going to be a baseball stadium right there on the Strip they've obviously started building. But then I have smart people around Vegas that tell me no. I mean, seeing a construction site start and then not finish is a Vegas norm. So I don't know if the A's are actually going to make it there. And when they do, then you're going to have to suddenly just accept that, a team that doesn't spend any money, that sucks every year, that's now sitting there on the Vegas Strip. And I'm going to go. I'm going to go to these games. I'm going to go out to Vegas in the middle of July and say, oh, I just want to sit and watch a baseball game out of the heat a little bit, get the chance. Yeah, this is what I'm going to do to myself. This has got to be the toughest team to root for in all of sports because the owner is never going to try and turn it around. The owner also said up yours to an entire city, then moved but didn't really move and is trying to move and figuring out relocation, all while his team still sucks, Caroline. Being an A's fan has to be the worst.
That's a very strong case because as somebody who lost a team in their hometown, like it sucks. It totally sucks to lose a team, especially one that you've rooted for your entire life. But for me, losing to St. Louis Rams, they went to LA and I understood it. Like LA is a more desirable place to be. The team was worth more in LA. They've had more success in LA than they had in St. Louis. Like I get it sucks, but I get it. There's a different level of hurt when it's, hey, we're taking your team away and we don't even know where we're going to be. We just don't want to be here. Like, we don't know where we're going to end up. We just don't want to be with you. It's like, oh, you're breaking up with me. Is there another woman? Like, nope, I just don't want to be with you anymore. Like, oh, gosh, dagger to the heart. My goodness. And it's because the A's, and I would add the Angels, haven't shown any sort of interest in being competitive. Like we're seeing now with the Dodgers, it's a money game. Like, if you spend more money on your roster and you become a desirable place for free agents to go, you will be competitive. You will win championships. There is a very clear and obvious blueprint for that. Now, maybe if you're the Mets, that's not necessarily a blueprint that's being followed, but the idea is you spend money and you get results. The A's, the Angels, the Pirates, the Marlins, the Rays, they're like, yeah, we're good. No thanks. We know that's equal success, but no, we're good. We don't have to compete. So that's brutal.
And
bad owners
on top
make
of
bad
all of that,
fans, bad fan bases. I think.
And on top of all of that, you're being left by a team that sucks. So you really shouldn't hate it because, wow, it gives me a reason not to watch them. But it's like, again, to go back to your relationship analogy, you know that she's just no good, but she's leaving you, and you're sitting there like, why do I miss her? I know that she's just not a good person, but I that's where everybody is. And then on top of that, to have it going to Vegas where they already lost their football team to Vegas, right? And so presuming it actually gets to Vegas, now you've got John Fisher, the ownership group of the A's, who doesn't, according to multiple reports on the record and off the record, people I've talked to, there's not a lot of love lost between the Fishers and Mark Davis, right? So you've got ownership groups that aren't going to like each other, going to a city that, may or may not even want that baseball team to be there. It's all a disaster. All of this to say that if you're a Sabres fan, this is why you suffer through the disaster, though. Like, everybody asks why you still root for a team. And I'm a big believer. Look, if I could have stopped being the fan of a team that sucked a long time ago, I would have. But it's just ingrained in my blood. I think that's why I love doing this, because I understand what it's like to just know that your emotions are controlled by a game you have no input on the outcome for. And if you think about Sabres fans, they have gone through a generation of not qualifying for the playoffs in hockey. Like, everybody makes the playoffs in hockey, not the Sabres, right? So to finally get that opportunity, yeah, you'll have a drought every once in a while. But to have that long of a drought where you couldn't do the thing that everybody in your sport does and just get to Lord Stanley's Cup playoff, that in and of itself to me is such a rewarding moment for Sabres fans. It has to hit different because they have suffered so. They're not like, guys, don't act like you've been here before because you may never get here again. Act like you love the chaos because you deserve it, Buffalo fans.
There is a certain badge of honor that I think comes from being a fan of a team that has sucked for so long, or at least a fan of a team that didn't have or hasn't had a dynastic level of a run. I always say that about Alabama football fans. When Alabama football was at the peak and they were consistently getting to college football playoffs, consistently winning national championships, I'm like, do you guys have any, even fun anymore? Like, is this fun for you? Is winning even fun anymore? Because the real fun comes from whenever you think that, everything is a disaster and you're running around like crazy because your team stinks and it's like, oh, cool, we won. But like when your team wins, when they win championships every single year, like, can you really appreciate it? You have to go through the struggle. You have to be kind of the dirt on the bottom of the shoe of whatever league that team, competes in order to truly appreciate the winning. So I hope that everyone in Buffalo is just overjoyed by the Sabres punching their ticket to the postseason. I think the Stanley Cup playoffs are the most exciting and best playoffs that we have in professional sports. And I'm so happy that it's coming back to Buffalo, a place that adores their sports teams.
Josh has pointed out to us, Josh Golden, who works on the show behind the scenes, said, if you need a wild stat, I'm 24 years old. I was nine the last time the Sabres played a playoff game. 9. On top of that, Doug points out
half the league makes the playoffs.
Not to be outdone, Doug is saying I was 15 the last time the Hornets won a playoff series. I'm 38. We got some droughts. We got some people on this show, myself included, fans of bad teams. We're going to be – Yahoo Sports Daily is going to turn it around. We'll turn right back around, be here 9 a.m. tomorrow. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Thoughts and prayers for all of us. We appreciate you watching. Come back tomorrow.